Hey everybody, David here with David BL Training. So, we've all heard of it. Most of us have probably done it at some point in our lives. Yep, today I'm going to be talking to you about stretching. We're going to be talking about some of the general recommendations and some misconceptions about stretching. So, let's start with this video. This is stretching, right? Well, yes and no. Most of us commonly associate this as stretching, but this is actually one of the two main types. This one is called static stretching. So first off, what is it? Why do we do it? Well, muscles pull on themselves and get shorter in order to work, in order to contract. Stretching actually lengthens a muscle, and the intent is to increase the range of motion and flexibility. Now again, there's two main types of stretches. There is the hold, which is called static stretching, and then there's also a movement-based stretching called dynamic stretching. Now there's variations and crossovers of each, but here we're just going to be talking about the basics. Now before going into each one, let's talk about some of the common knowledge, okay? I'm sure we've all heard that stretching can prevent injury. The problem with that claim is after looking through the literature and the research, there's actually no studies to back that up. However, stretching can reduce stiffness, it can help increase range of motion, and therefore flexibility. And again, everyone is different. Some people might really feel a benefit from stretching, some might not, and that's okay. So let's get into the two types. The first type that I'm going to talk about is dynamic stretching. This is the movement-based stretching. This can increase blood flow, it can increase range of motion, it can also be done as a warm-up. For example, in the warm-up video I talked about arm circles and knee raises. If you want to do these as a dynamic stretch, each time you would raise your knee or you do your arm circle, you just want to feel a little bit of a stretch each time you do the move. Now, the static stretch, where you hold, can increase flexibility, can increase range of motion, but it's best to be done after exercise, and here's why. The best way I can explain this is with these noodles here. Now, you can see the noodles are pretty bendy and, well, okay, there we go. That one broke right there. Okay, so as I just showed, what happens if you try to bend a noodle, right? Our muscle fibers are like noodles, okay? There's a lot of fibers in our muscles, and if we don't warm them up enough, what will happen? We'll end up breaking something, or in the case of our muscles, we'll usually end up tearing a muscle fiber. All right. So what do? Well, we save the static stretching for the most part for after our exercise. Because if we haven't cooked the noodles, if we haven't warmed up our muscles, sometimes it's not always a good situation. So, some things to remember. For the dynamic stretching and the static stretching, you should feel a stretch, but it shouldn't be painful. If it's painful, you're going a little bit too far. So, again, the static stretch, the traditional stretch, it's not a warm-up, okay? For the most part, save that for the end of your activity or your exercise when your muscles are already warm and loose. The dynamic stretch can be a warm-up. Both are recommended, okay? They can increase flexibility and range of motion and reduce stiffness, but you are a unique person. Find out what works for you, okay? Might work, might not work. Try it for several weeks or a month or two. If it works, great. If it doesn't, okay. Well, I think that's all I want to talk about stretching. Thanks for watching. Please leave a comment or send me a message if there's something that you want me to cover in a future video. Thanks again for tuning in.